can't be. It's the 10th episode. But we still have so much to tell you and so many more people to interview.
But we can't do it all. After all, we are seniors. Sizzling seniors, apparently. We really have learned so much about this area and about making films. Over the past 10 months, we have realized a lot of benefits from this project for us and for our community. Linda, what has this project meant to you?
Well, Beth, I am looking at the community in a whole new light. My respect for the people who built the Peace Country and Grande Prairie has soared. We would not have what we have today without the hard work and determination of the early settlers. In researching the development of the one-room schools, we've learned so much more about the way of life of the pioneers. We have heroes all around us who need to be remembered for how they have made the Peace Country a magical place. I have learned that with one-room schools, it wasn't the buildings that mattered as much as the extraordinary efforts of the communities to educate and to develop character in their children. The children that attended these schools went on to do such noble and meaningful things in all walks of life, and we have many who have gone on to represent us all around the world.
Well said, Linda. In most situations, the people back then worked together like a fine-tuned machine, like a championship sports team. They overcame so many barriers. For example, communication when several different languages were spoken in the area. Our harsh climate. Minus 40 to 50 is a bit chilly. And getting from place to place before more modern methods of transportation were introduced here. I often think that if they hadn't done what they did, we wouldn't have so many luxuries today. Those particular immigrants were already tough visionaries with dreams and motivation. Just to get here took bravery and confidence. Their hard work was a perfect example for the next generations about how to get things done. We have a few clips of my chat with Eleanor Waffler Bain Haddo just 5 or 6 months before she passed away in the fall of 2021. She was a most wonderful lady, and I wanted our conversation to continue for hours longer. Eleanor was a student and then a teacher at Canuck School.
Would scrub the school in the summer to get it clean for fall. Every mother in the district pretty well went and helped with the scrubbing, and they washed the windows and they do the desks and so on. And everything was all done. It was a total community spirit in that community. If people were short of things, like during the Depression years, I can remember people running out of flour and coming and borrowing flour, and then they would get a bag of flour and they'd bring flour back. Or if you were out of eggs, somebody would bring you eggs. It was not a money transaction. It was a friendship, caring community spirit. Very, very clean community. Everybody that came to school, they were Monday morning, everybody came in clean clothes. And you probably wore the same thing all week. And then Saturday night was the old traditional wash tub day. And Monday, our mothers washed. Tuesday, they ironed. Wednesday, they baked bread. Or usually they baked bread on Tuesday when the oven was hot from the irons being heated. We didn't have power. We didn't have running water. 1 or 2 people in the community, I believe, had power, but it would be a wind power. And they had, I only know one that had running water. My mom always said we had running water. Dad ran in with it and she ran out with it. He would bring the water in and then she would use it and so on. And when the pail was full, she'd take it out and throw it at the hedge roots so that it watered the trees. So that was our running water. We never had power on the farm all the time I lived there. We never had a phone. There were 3 phones in the district, and anybody in an emergency knew where to go. There was 1 or 2 people had cars, nothing that worked in the winter because of the roads. And If there was an emergency again, you went to the neighbors and they took you to town, to the hospital, wherever you had to go. And that was life. That was life. Little house on the prairie. We could walk across the neighbors' fields. We could drive, go with our horses because the neighbors put gates in their fences to allow us to cross. So we didn't have to go the 4.5 miles. We could go just straight across the field and would have less distance to go. And the neighbors watched us. They would see that we went to school. They would see everything was fine and we were on our horses going to school. Coming home, the same thing. They would make sure that we were across the creek in the spring, and in the wintertime that everything was fine. We would get through the gates and on back home again. No. So we had good babysitters. We didn't even know it at that time, but they all watched us every day. We didn't have bullies at school. Everybody helped the little ones. The older ones helped the little kids. They made sure they got their turns and so on. If they didn't want to play, they would try to get them involved in it in some way.
We have touched on this a little bit, but we really need to put a spotlight on the teachers in the one-room schools. They were quite amazing. Their sense of adventure and willingness to deal with almost anything proved to be very important. The school was often the center of the community, which put the teacher in a well-connected position.
They were so resourceful and innovative. We have some great stories about teachers who never wasted an opportunity to make use of a teachable moment.
This is Iva Carell Foster, who we had the pleasure of interviewing before she passed away at almost 102 years of age. She was so full of energy and smiles. I would have loved to have been in her class.
One day, 2 grade 9 boys brought in some baby mice in a jam tin, hoping they could scare the girls and me. I told them the mice would die as there was no air holes in the lid. I kept the mice under my eye on top of my desk and watched the class watch them all afternoon. I detained the boys after school and had them do a little dissection on the mice. One boy had to leave or be sick, but I was fine due to my nursing training. The boys met up with me at a school reunion 30 or 40 years later and told me he still remembers doing that dissection. They never brought mice to the classroom again.
And dessert. They both have a D-S-E-R-T, don't they?
That's a desert
But
dessert.
how do we know how to spell one or the other? Because desert is alone and you want 2 helpings of dessert, so you get 2 S's.
Seal Dixon is almost 99 years old and she has barely slowed down. She has some great stories. You can see the sparkle in her eyes when she talks about her teaching years.
I am Cecilia Dixon, and I am old, but I had a fun time teaching. It was great. I lived at Berwyn, and I lived there until I went to normal school. Went through high school in Berwyn, and my family thought, well, girls needed an education. And so it was difficult because in those days we didn't have much money. But they decided it was important for me to go. And I remember going to the city and I didn't know anything. And but the year I went was wartime, and some of us went into Edmonton and started normal school, which was moved that year instead of, because the Air Force took over the normal school building. And so we were at Garneau School and started there. But they just had some of us went in July and some in August. And then we had an intense time at normal school, but it was so short. And then the end of September, they sent a whole bunch of us up north and to remote areas because they were so short of teachers. And so there was 8 of us went north of Grimshaw. To me, that was fun because it was coming home because Grimshaw was near Berwick. So that was fun, and I lived with a German family, and oh my, could she cook. It was fun anyway, but the teachers at the, our instructors there, they said, we learned a lot when we were out in the classroom. And the superintendent there said, we know this is tough, but just give it your best shot. And they were so supportive. They said, do what you think best, and it's better than nothing, sort of thing. So we were better than nothing.
Eleanor Haddo was only 16 years old when she graduated from high school. Her teacher training was brief, so she ended up teaching some of the students that had been her classmates. Can you imagine?
While I was at the school there at Canuck, the students that I first taught, when I went back there to teach, they had been in grade 1 and 2 and up to grade 6. And then when I went back to teach there, I taught them. The ones that had been in grades 1 to 6 had been my fellow students. I ended up teaching them in grade 9, some of them. And so it was interesting to know that I had gone to school with them and then I ended up teaching them. And I remember the superintendent at that time came out to the farm and he had some advice for me. He said, just because you are so young and back here teaching, you have to remember, he said, that not everybody finds education as easy as you found it. And he said, because he knew I had these boys in grade 9 that were the same age as I was, and they were in grade 9, and I had already had a year of university and a year of teaching. Anyway, when they were in grade 9, they had to get new, we didn't have any bought poles for the pole jumping or anything. So they went across the field to the bush to pick out some tall, lanky willow trees and get crossbars for on the jumping stands or pole vaulting. So they had the 2 stands made, which the fathers and the boys made together, brought them to school, and then they needed the bars to go across. So they went over to the woods to get these poles. So all 5 of the boys went trekking across the field to get these poles. So the girl was in her grade 9 desk, or the 5 empty desks in a row. Guess who drives in? The superintendent. So I said to him, well, this is a surprise. And I said, you're going to be looking for my grade 9 boys, but I said they're out getting equipment for the school. He said that was fine. So I just went ahead. He sat quietly at the back of the room. Those boys came back across the field. They put the poles down beside the jump stands and they saw the car there, so they would know it was a strange car in the district. It would be the superintendent. They came in, they took out their books and got right to work, just as if I didn't have to say a word to them. And that was in September, and that was the beginning of an absolutely perfect year.
Sharon Brown Annis tells a story about her mother, Myrtle Tolley Brown, who was a teacher at Canuck School.
I'm going to flip to our mother, who taught at Canuck School from 1935 to 1938, Myrtle Tolley Brown. She stayed at the Louis Alexander's farm and rode horseback 2.5 miles to teach school. Ruth Beliski recalls how neat and well-dressed Miss Tolley always looked. Eventually, a quiet, gentle Irishman came calling, but not really calling. He was hauling wood to the potbelly, fill the wood pile for the potbelly stove. Eventually, courtship was struck and they began courting. Paul and Jack Lazaron remember Jack Brown coming to pick up Mom after school in his 1935 Ford. Mom's entry in her journal 1938 at Alexander's. She was so excited because Alexander's got a radio. In 1938, Jack Brown came to visit over at Alexander's, and they listened to the radio. That was their date because the other family members were gone. They were married in 1940, and the rest is history. Our mother was the last teacher in 1955 to teach at Canuck. Mom provided and inspired much care and attention for all of her family and all of her students to be the best that they could be. Thank you, Mom.
And we have a few precious extras.
My mother was Scottish, and you learned to do the Highland fling. Well, then when I went back to Canuck, of course, these girls were there. And in the wintertime, what do? There was a Christmas concert coming up, and their parents, Sharon's dad, played the violin, and he could play the accordion, and he was our musician.
I, as a grade 2 student, remember a wonderful memory of Eleanor Loeffler Haddo teaching us Highland dance. And Bev Jackson and Francis and Joan and I all learned to do Highland dancing. I had a special kilt with a black watch pattern. I still have my kilt pin, but I don't have the skirt. It was just such fun. We even did competitions at some of the festivals and stuff in Grande Prairie, and our father, Jack Brown, played for us to dance on his button accordion. It was great times.
This painting was done by Lorraine Bodie-Nagel, and this was done in acrylic, as it says, and mixed media by Lorraine Bodie-Nagel, assisted by her granddaughter, Ronlyn Nagel, for the centennial celebration in 2018. Originally, school was situated 2 miles northwest of its present location, and this was the barn, the 2 toilets, teacherage, and all the sports equipment. A beautiful piece, very memorable. We're proud of it.
We also noticed the importance of relationships. The friendships that were built back then were strong and often lifelong. Lots of marriages too. Check these out.
Greetings. I am Iva Foster, and I'm 101 years old, and this is my daughter Ruth, and she is going to do the reading of my life story.
This is a story of my mom's school life. Oh, got a bit teary. I have always been an independent and extroverted person who enjoys spending time with family and friends. I have traveled to every continent and have been active in local community clubs and projects where I have lived. Today, my small apartment in Beaver Lodge allows me to see and greet those coming and going. I think my smiling face is a welcome sight for many visitors and residents there. Some of my former students still live in the same care facility as I do, always happy to share their memories with me as a teacher.
County or the city, but it was just a neat chapter in a small chapter in a part of my life. And to this day, there are fellows, girls, especially fellows, who have become lifelong friends because of my commitment, meeting them at Walkley Lodge.
Great for us four to get together and talk about flanges, because I haven't talked about flange at school for,
No, that's right.
man, for 70 years. Yeah.
And we haven't seen each other for many years.
No, exactly. We just meet each other once in a while, say hello, and
Yeah.
This story is so wonderful. Gail Owe Mellum and Christine Pinch Fester were students in East Cleskin School a long time ago, and they have reconnected recently to chat about the memories.
So I was there when Christine came in grade 1, and it was just a thrill to help out the little kids. And with one teacher, she couldn't always, or he couldn't always be with everybody all the time. So when you were finished your work, you were able to go and help others, or read a book, or get into trouble, or whatever.
So going to school in the first year in grade 1 was very confusing year because I spoke no English. So my dad and my parents, my dad and mom, both decided that I needed to go to school just to learn to speak English because we spoke 2 other languages at home. And so that's when I met Gail, and I was very fortunate because they took it upon themselves to help us, 2 younger students in grade 1, and they helped us out a lot. They paid attention to us. They were like big sisters to us, and it was very kind of them.
And I don't remember for sure exactly when we reconnected, but when I moved back here, I guess whenever I saw you, we always knew one another and we'd chat when we could, and the friendship remained the same as always. We didn't see each other for a number of years, but you picked up where you left off. And I think it's a valuable lesson for kids nowadays too, that you can remain friends to your old friends are special. To talk about the years at the school and the years in the Peace River country and even the farming like we just did, I think that would benefit anybody.
We have realized over the past 10 months that this project is having a very pleasant ripple effect. Reunions are being planned for alumni from several of the one-room schools. Old classmates have reconnected and shared memories. Our seniors readers theater group has grown, as have our requests for presentations. We have met so many wonderful people who are very pleased that we are preserving this important history. I am so happy we did this, Linda, and we couldn't have done it without Mariah.
Let me tell you all, this lady made the whole thing happen. She had so much patience with us. Like when we asked the same question several times because we forgot the answer. And when we got lost in the cloud, what's a cloud? But we also had some awesome giggles and good times. And we got smarter.
Mariah, you worked your magic constantly. We would give you a mess and you would make a masterpiece out of it. Linda, I like what you said the other day about that, by the time we have all this information and knowledge down pat, it'll be episode 11, but there are only 10 episodes. Mariah, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Oh, you two are so fabulous. Honestly, it was a steep learning curve for not having any production experience, and it was just so nice to collaborate with both of you and share my production experience and make your vision come to life. Honestly, it's my pleasure to be able to do this for you both, and it really means a lot that you chose me to help you with this project. So honestly, you should give yourselves more credit. You are the ones who put this all together. I just maybe brought some cameras and captured it all. You are both very strong visionaries, and you should both be proud.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have learned a great amount of production and filming information, which proves that it's never too late to teach an old dog new tricks. We are also so grateful to our community who have helped us in so many ways. We hope that you are inspired to do some of your own research about the history of your family and your area.
And by the way, we called this episode
That's a Wrap!
Because it is.
Yay! Good job!
10 episodes.
Yeah,
Woohoo!
We did it!
Champagne time.
Yeah.
We acknowledge that we live and film on Treaty 8 territory, the ancestral and present-day home to many diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. We are grateful to work, live, and learn on the traditional territory of Duncan First Nation, Horse Lake First Nation, and Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, who are the original caretakers of this land. We acknowledge the history of this land, and we are thankful for the opportunity to walk together in friendship, where we will encourage and promote positive change for present and future generations.
That is a very special and meaningful statement for us and for our project.